This one I'm not too sure about, but I'm just going to try it. This is Nightmare Movies. What are the true stories behind the Conjuring movies?
One of the biggest modern horror franchises would take the world by storm. The Conjuring was an instant hit, spawning 3 sequels and 5 spin-offs for the series. These movies need no introduction. They have been a huge draw.
I have not watched all of them. I think the first 2 I've seen, but the other ones, it just kind of seems like the same thing over and over. But I guess people are I'm not super into horror movies. I like other things like that, though.
For horror fans for a while now. But what has always intrigued me more than the actual movies was the cases behind them. As we all know, the mainline films in this franchise have followed the real-life investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren, a couple of extremely famous paranormal investigators who took a look into some of the most infamous hauntings in recent history. And with the new film coming out, I thought this would be the perfect time to revisit
I did not know it was like based on a real thing. I had no idea about that.
each one of the main films and discuss with you all the cases they were based on. And with all of that out of the way, I'm Nightmare Movies. And today, I want to discuss the cases that inspired the Conjuring movies. In 1971, the Perron family moved into their infamous farmhouse that was constructed all the way back in 1736. Almost immediately, the family began seeing...
That was built in 1736? There's no way. That's crazy. It's like 200 years.
In 1736. Almost immediately, the family began seeing full-body apparitions all throughout the 14-room home. This is when Carolyn Perron did some research into the history of the house.
Oh my god, imagine seeing something like that before the internet, and you're just actually tripping. Like, that's just not how reality works, and your brain's like snapping. That's crazy. I didn't even know that was, well... I guess I knew ghosts were haunting people before, 50s and stuff, before there were TVs and shit. But anyway.
She had uncovered that the home had been in the same family for 8 generations and had seen some horrific events. Several of the family's children had drowned in a nearby
8 generations?
Creek. Some of the family had hanged themselves in the attic, and one was even murdered. This, to her knowledge, explains the mass amounts of spirits connected to the house. However, there was one specific...
I mean, why would they be attached to the house specifically? Because they're like part of the family and they don't want to leave? I don't know. I kind of believe the unfinished business thing, but not really.
Spirit that seemed to be the most hostile, a spirit that the family referred to as Bathsheba. According to Andrea Perron, the daughter of Carolyn, this spirit, quote, perceived herself to be mistress of the house, and she resented the competition my mother posed for that position. It was uncovered that Bathsheba was actually a real person by the name of Bathsheba Sherman, a woman who had lived on the property in the mid-1800s. She was rumored to have been both a Satanist and to have been involved in the death of a neighbor's child, though neither of these claims have been fully confirmed.
I don't know. I feel like that stuff doesn't make sense, because if you're like trying to manifest something, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? Like in time, it all works, but sometimes it's not the time for it to work yet. And I feel like if you were to like sacrifice a child and then try to manifest something essentially by doing that, and if it worked out, you would just be like, oh, it was because we killed the kid. And like, yeah, you're right. But that's not exactly correct, when you break it down. So I think that, I don't know, that stuff I feel like it's just kind of like delusional behavior that gets like adapted over time. And now it's like normal. And maybe she knew like other Satanist people.
Over the 10 years that the family lived at this farmhouse, the Warrens made multiple trips to the home to try and exorcise it from these spirits. This culminated in the event that we see in the film where
I feel like that would actually make it more upset. And if you didn't like get it out, it would just be more aggressive. So you probably doing that like a bunch of times maybe wasn't the move. I don't know. I'm no expert.
Sheba possessed Carolyn, and Ed Warren tried to banish it from her. According to Andrea, her mother began speaking in a language not of this world and in a voice not her own. Her chair levitated and she was thrown across the room. After the seance, Roger Perron kicked the Warrens out and they never returned. The family continued to live in the house.
Bro, the second I see in real life a person speaking like a different language and with a different voice than I don't know them to have, I'd be freaking the fuck out. I'd immediately believe in all that shit. You know what I mean? but it hasn't happened. And people say it happens all the time, of course.
Until 1980, when they finally moved out and all of the paranormal happenings stopped. All of this was the inspiration for what would end up being the first Conjuring film. However, from my description, you'll probably notice some major differences from the film. Even Andrea states that only about 5% of the film is accurate to what actually happened. But with the first one
5%?
out of the way, we get to travel all the way.
Bro, that's so lame. I guess you could still call it a true story, or based on a true story, but that's so roughly based. That's so lame.
To London for our second case and our second film.
Maybe she's like being dramatic though, and she just hated the film, so she was like, yeah, no, that was not even accurate at all. Like 5% maybe.
The 4 children of Peggy Hodgson was complaining the night before that her bed was wobbling. The next day, Peggy hears a loud crash upstairs. Assuming that the children are just messing around, she goes to investigate. As she enters the room, a large chest slides across the floor. Peggy moved it back to its place, and suddenly the chest moved on its own once again. Terrified, the family ran to their neighbors for help. The Nottinghams tried to calm the Hodgsons, and the father of the Nottinghams, Vic, went to go investigate. There, he also experienced something strange and decided the only people who could handle this were the police. 2 police officers initially investigated the house and found nothing out of the ordinary. However, one of the police officers later was on record saying that she saw one of the large armchairs in the house move on its own, about 4 feet across the living room floor. This was the start of what would be referred to as the Enfield poltergeist.
Oh, dude, she probably like was scarred that day, like, and couldn't not see that chair move. You know, that's crazy. And he must not have known that doesn't work at that point, because I don't think they do anything now.
Over the next few months, press and paranormal investigators visited the home to witness the happenings. Most famously, a photographer, Graham Morris, visited the home and set up remote camera.
Do they actually like refute like calls to 911 that involve that? Respond to calls about paranormal stuff. I forgot to put police. Do not respond to calls strictly about paranormal activities. They're not equipped to handle supernatural occurrences and only investigate potential crimes. However, officers will respond if a call indicates a human element, such as a potential intruder, prowler, or domestic issue. Oh, so if you have like a skinwalker, you're good. Okay. All right.
Cameras all across the home. They were set to go off every 15 seconds, and he was the man who captured the most famous photos of Janet supposedly levitating in her room. Now, if you're wondering where Ed and Lorraine Warren come into the story...
Bro, no. Are you kidding me? She's actively jumping on the fucking bed.
Her room.
She's jumping off the bed, bro. It's the same momentum.
Levitating in her room. Now, if you're wondering...
What's she doing? She freaking out too. What's going on? I don't know, man.
Where Ed and Lorraine Warren come into this story, well, you might be a little disappointed by the truth. Ed and Lorraine only spent 1 day at the family's home. There, at the same time, was a member of the Society for Psychical Research, Guy Playfair. Ed and Lorraine's visit was essentially them going into the house, saying that there was an entity inside, and then telling Guy that there was money to be made off of writing books and selling movie rights. What? Funnily enough, Guy did eventually write a book detailing his experiences in the home, where he...
Bro, that's kind of a weird take on like my house is haunted. I'm gonna write a book. I mean it's actually kind of a play. Better than just moving out, right? If you can handle it.
Maintains that there was paranormal activity in the home, but believed the daughters were responsible for faking some of the activity as well. This specific case is an interesting one for a couple reasons. First, there were numerous times where the girls, specifically Janet, were caught faking activity or pranking the people invited to the house. Janet was caught bending spoons, banging a broom handle against the ceiling, and even the photographic evidence looks more like Janet jumping off of her bed rather than evidence of her levitating. The other interesting part was...
Bro, and that guy genuinely thinks that's a picture of her levitating? Like, that's the problem. This guy's a loser and he's wrong.
How little the Warrens were actually involved in this case. Like I said, they were only there for a single day and did almost no investigating of their own.
Yeah, he's just trying to get a bag. He's a loser.
This is kind of confusing considering the existence of the second film in the series, and it seems, like the first film, quite a few creative liberties were taken. However, that didn't stop the film from being insanely successful just like the first.
Oh, so damn. Bro, it made more internationally than...
Didn't stop the film from being insanely successful.
Wow, that's kind of insane.
Just like the...
Bro, internationally, people love movies that are like horror movies like that.
First.
Wow.
And so naturally...
I wonder why it's so fascinating, like horror and crime and all that, but I love that shit. I don't know why, though.
A third film was in the works. And this time, we're going to be looking at one of the strangest hauntings in U.S. history. The story follows David Glatzel, a young boy who claimed that while he was cleaning up the family's rental property, an old man appeared in front of him and vowed to hurt him and his family if they ever moved into the property. David immediately told this story to Debbie Glatzel and Arnie Johnson. Initially, they brushed off his story, thinking it was a way of getting out of cleaning the house.
Bro, what? Oh, I was going to say, why would he make that shit up?
However, things only worsened for David. He began experiencing night terrors. His behavior became strange and erratic, and bruises and scratches randomly started appearing on his body. 12 days after the initial encounter with this old man demon, the family called Ed and Lorraine Warren to investigate.
Well, but he said if they moved in, and they didn't move in yet, or did they?
She saw a black mist wrapping itself around David, a sign of a malevolent spirit, or in this case, multiple spirits.
Oh, it like followed him.
Lorraine had claimed that David was suffering from multiple possessions, so 3 exorcisms were performed to expel the spirits from him. During one of the exorcisms, Arnie Johnson reportedly coerced one of the demons to possess him. After the exorcism had finished, Arnie returned to the rental property of the original spirit to examine an old well. This is where he claims that the demon took possession of him. This is where we're going to get into some pretty graphic details.
Oh no, this gets real. Oh no. Yeah, a well? I could actually see a well being pretty haunted. And then like something, people throwing bodies in there or something back then. You'd never find them,
Of a real case. I just want to warn all of you.
Oh,
on
shit.
February 16th, 19...
I'm locked the fuck in. Let's go.
Arnie joined Debbie at her job at a kennel with Debbie's sister Wanda and her cousin Mary. Their landlord at the time, Bono, had bought everyone lunch and started drinking heavily. They all returned to the kennel and Debbie took Mary and Wanda out for pizza, feeling something was wrong. After the 3 girls returned, Bono was heavily intoxicated and became agitated at the group. The girls tried to leave.
And Bono sounded like a problem.
But Bono was able to snatch Mary and hold her there until Arnie arrived. There,
Bono.
An altercation took place. Wanda recounts Arnie pulling out a 5-inch pocket knife and growling like an animal. This is when Arnie proceeded to stab Bono multiple times. The report states that Bono had suffered 4 or 5 tremendous wounds, mostly to his chest, and one that stretched from his stomach to the base of his heart. Johnson was then discovered 3 miles away from the crime scene, where he had no recollection of what happened. And
oh, yeah, I've seen that part of the movie, I think.
Now, things get even stranger. The day after the crime, Lorraine Warren informed police that Johnson was possessed at the time. This case became famous for being the first in history where the defendant, Arnie Johnson, claimed insanity by possession. The defense was immediately thrown out by the judge, but somehow the charges were dropped to first-degree manslaughter, and Arnie Johnson served 5.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you hear good enough testimony, you're not gonna you're gonna be like, well, no one's responsible for that. Like, it is crazy, and he's not gonna waste his life, pleading demonic possession if it wasn't real, especially because no one else did it before. It wasn't like a way to just get out of shit.
Years in prison. This is probably Ed and Lorraine's most controversial case, especially with their involvement in the aftermath of the crime. It's also quite a divisive movie considering everything that I've discussed. But the final film in the mainline franchise is almost in theaters, and we have one last case to go through. Our story starts in 1973. Jack and Janet had lost their home the previous year due to Hurricane Agnes. Looking to start fresh, the couple and their 4 children, Dawn, Heather, and Karen, moved to West Pittston, Pennsylvania, to a home that would be a house of horrors for the next decade. There were numerous claims of paranormal activity from the family, mostly that spirits were physically assaulting the family.
Threw their dog into a wall. Oh my God. Shook their mattress, pushed one of their daughters down a flight of stairs. Jesus.
And the most infamous claim came from the father, Jack.
Dude, why does that happen, though?
According to him, one night he was watching a baseball game when he was attacked by a succubus. In 1986, Ed and Lorraine were called to investigate once again. Lorraine reported that there was not just one entity, but 4 of them. 3 human spirits and 1 demon. And in their first day of investigating, this is what they experienced.
The television lit up, but it wasn't plugged in. Then all the things that were on the bureau.
Oh, is that this lady? The one from Family Guy that's all... Yeah, okay.
Began to dance.
After being presented with this, the Warrens recommended the family contact a local Roman Catholic priest to exorcise the multiple spirits in their home. However, the church denied their requests. So from there, the Warrens took a more hands-on approach and contacted their own acquaintances to perform the exorcism, specifically Father Robert McKenna. He came to their home and performed 2 separate exorcisms that were unsuccessful in dispelling the spirits. This is when the Smurls took their story to the press. After gaining widespread attention, Cardinal Ratzinger received a letter about the Smurl case and immediately sent an exorcist to handle the situation. And with his arrival, the 3rd and final exorcism was successful, and the Smurl family no longer experienced any activity. Now, after researching the story...
Dude, they actually work? I never actually seen a record of anything like that working. That's crazy.
Comparing it to the trailer for the newest Conjuring film, I'm left a little confused. I can only interpret so much from a trailer, but it seems like they're trying to connect it to another haunting the Warrens investigated, but from what I was able to find, this seemed to be an isolated case and not connected to the Warrens in any sort of way. The other prominent difference I saw was the inclusion of this lumberjack-looking demon. I'm assuming that this is one of the 4 spirits they encountered in the house, but the main demon, or succubus, seems to be absent from any of the story so far, unless we count this scene in the mirror room.
Bro, so that shit's like legit? Or like, they didn't sound like credible people based on what we heard in this video. I don't feel like they're credible people, so...
To be absent from any of what this new movie brings and how they adapt this story. As you can see, the series has always taken some creative liberties with the cases, but I would love to know what you all think about these cases, these movies, and what you think of the new one once it's released. And
I think, didn't someone do some research and find that a lot of the possessions and stuff that they found before were actually like undiagnosed mental illnesses or like various other things like that, psychiatric issues, stuff? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's, I don't know if I really agree with all of that. Like exorcisms and stuff. I feel like, I wonder how many they do now. Do they still do exorcisms? Yeah, are performed each year. I need to get water. $500,000 in Italy alone. What? So not much in the U.S. Throughout the world. Conducted over 60,000 exorcisms. How would he even have done that and believed Hitler was possessed? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, that was weird. That didn't help any. Never mind. That was a good video though. I'm gonna give that a like. That was pretty good. I think I'll sub on him. I feel like that's like good type of stuff that I'm kind of into.